This time on Basically Detectives, we're talking about episode 2 of I Am a Killer. How you doing, lambs? So we're back, episode 2 of I Am a Killer, Basically Detectives, where we don't summarize the whole show for you, and it's up to you to watch the show on your own before coming here to us. If you guys like our content, please go to patreon.com/loveandmurder. You can join at tiers for as low as $1. We always advertise the $5 tier if you want to get the best bargain, so go ahead and check that out for yourselves. And as always, if you head over to murderandlove.com, you can check out our awesome merch. You can use our SOS system where you can chat us out, give us a message, just say hello. You can give us a heads up about content you might want to see, tell us what your favorite episode is, tell us how your day is going, whatever you want to do. So we pick up with I Am a Killer on episode 2. And this episode focuses on a Mr. Kenneth Foster. And the interesting thing about Mr. Foster is he apparently didn't actually commit any killing. Yes, that's right. He is considered to be a killer on the most technical of terms. Apparently he was involved in the crime, but he did not actually pull the trigger. When the episode begins, I'm listening, and he's saying that they basically prosecuted him for being the driver. And at first I was thinking, oh, that's weird. How I didn't know you could get the death penalty for, I knew that you could get in trouble if you assisted in a crime, but I always thought that the person who, 100% committed the crime would be the one who gets, the worst. Apparently not. If you are, If you assist in committing the crime, your punishment can be just as bad, apparently. And there is some talk later on in the episode about how, we think that he masterminded the whole thing. We think that he was in charge of all of it. I don't really know how they came to that conclusion, because his story kind of, they were a bunch of kids. Well, I say kids. They were a bunch of dudes just running around, high on drugs and on alcohol and just doing crazy things. He does admit that it seems to me that they have a tendency to commit robbery. He explains how they run up on people and just rob them. I don't remember the term he used, but the way he explained it sounded like you just be riding around and then boom, you see somebody and you just decide to rob them, so you run up behind them and just boom, rob them. That seemed to be how he explained it. And that's messed up. Other than that, I didn't really see any to say that he was a mastermind behind anything. That's just me. Again, I don't know this guy personally. Like I always say, I don't know these people personally, but I don't really see a record for him in that way. I know he's involved in drugs and beer and robbery and that kind of stuff. I don't think he's a killer in that sense. But the prosecution, they thought that he did it, and supposedly they found him guilty before they found the actual murderer guilty. So that was interesting. It was interesting, too, to see the protesting. There were people protesting for him not to be on death row anymore. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I don't think that he should have gotten that severe a penalty. And again, I wasn't there in the jury when they were making the decision, but the jury and everybody in the courtroom seemed to think that he was the lead guy in all this. And I don't know that I agree with that. And if you guys disagree with me, that's fine. I'm not saying that you should agree with me or disagree with me. I just think that if you're not the person who committed the murder, you shouldn't get the same punishment as the murderer. That's weird to me. And it would be different if Kenneth got out of the car and held the dude down, and then his buddy shot him while Kenneth was holding him, or if Kenneth handed in the gun, or if Kenneth tried to shoot him and then missed and threw his buddy the gun. I didn't see any of that happening from the story that we heard. I can see how and why the victim's brother would have animosity towards Kenneth, but I don't know anybody who's ever been murdered, so I cannot speak to that experience, but I can say that I do understand the victim's brother, where he's coming from, having animosity towards Kenneth. Yes, as an outsider looking in, I can say, well, Kenneth didn't really kill the guy. I mean, he was involved with the group who did it, but I don't see a reason to say that he deserves the same punishment. The victim's brother, however, I do understand that anybody involved with my brother's death, I would probably feel the same way towards. You know, you did something that led up to my brother's death, whether it was a crime or just a small gesture or just you being there. I can understand that from a certain angle. I can't, however, agree with them giving him the death penalty just because he was an accomplice. You know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because he literally, at the last minute, he had 1 day left before he was supposed to be executed, and they pulled him out of it. People were protesting for him. He was very vocal about his rights and advocating for him to get off of death row. So he goes from being on death row to having a life sentence in prison. And I believe it said he was going to be eligible for parole in 2036. But yeah, it is heartbreaking too. I don't want to take away from the victims or the tragedy that it is. So it is heartbreaking to hear the brother talk about how it went down, seeing his father, just seeing his father be so caught up in the intensity of the moment and how he just shut down so quickly once the realization came that his son was gone. That's heartbreaking. That's very sad to hear. I felt for him in that moment. I can't imagine what that must have felt like. So this episode, there was a lot of pondering things about this episode. The moral quandary of someone who aids in a crime. I guess I could see where if they committed the crime and then Kenneth helped him leave the scene, that I can see where your involvement gets you punished for that. But even then, I still don't think that, you know, the quote-unquote getaway driver should have the same charges. I do think it's fitting that the murderer gets the death penalty and then the getaway driver gets life in prison. You know, that's different for me. But again, speaking as someone who's never lost anybody in a tragic murder or anything like that, I can only assume how I would feel about it if that happened to me. And then Kenneth's grandfather steps in and he even tries to speak to the victim's brother, who was the DA at the time, and even he said, you know, I feel that my grandson has been too deep for too long compared to what he actually did. And again, I understand the brother says, you know, well, no, I don't intend to advocate for him to get out any earlier than he deserves to get out. And he even explains if Kenneth serves his time, is found eligible for parole and gets out, he would visit him. He would not hold any ill will. But until then, he clarified that he is not willing to say that Kenneth should get out early. And I respect that. Even though I didn't agree with him being given the death sentence, and then, of course, that gets, you know, retconned into, oh, it's a life sentence now. I do think that once you get hit with your term, you should have to serve your term. Unless you're found innocent or something like that. Which he's not going to be because he admits that he was involved in the crime and he did what he did. So, there's a lot of stuff about this case that I can't really pinpoint how I feel about it. And I'm more or less interested in hearing your guys' opinions. And, you know, listening to the episode begin, I was like, okay, this guy didn't kill anybody. It tells you in the episode he got convicted without even pulling the trigger. So I'm like, oh, he didn't kill anybody. So why is he going through this conundrum right now? And that was it. Like, you know, what crime deserves what punishment, blah, 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 blah. Because at the end of the day, that's up to a jury and a judge to decide. You know, the jury determines whether or not you're guilty. And then, of course, the judge is the one who decides at the end of the day, like, what happens to you. And I know the jury can push for certain results. Especially if there's, like, a unanimous agreement. But, yeah, that's a moral quandary for me. Like, sitting here in this booth right now, I know I keep repeating myself, but I still want to say he doesn't deserve the death penalty for what he did, but I can't really say that out of experience because I don't have that experience. So, Kenneth even recites the tale of what happened. You know, they're driving around, they pull up to this street, this chick knocks on the window, wants to talk to them, so they do. His buddy gets out, and the next thing they know, someone's been murdered. I don't see any reason to disbelieve him for that. For all I know, he did stay in the car, and then his buddy got out, did some weird stuff, effed up, killed somebody, got in the car, told them to drive away, and then they drove away. I don't remember if he said that they heard the gunshots and all got out of the car to look, and then they all got back in the car to leave. I don't remember. I don't know how to feel about this case, guys. It was, like I said, interesting case. I enjoyed the episode. It piqued my interest, but the deeper I go into this whole situation, I'm not really sure how to process it. And I might have to clarify how I feel in a later episode about this part of the show, but right now I'm a little conflicted on how it went down, and I will say right now that I agree that he didn't deserve the death penalty, and I do agree that he should serve out his entire term, and then once he's eligible for parole and he gets out, fine, whatever. If they believe that he's become a better person and learned from what happened, I do think that he should get out. And there's also the aspect of the brother of the victim is a district attorney. That was a little weird to me. Like, the district attorney has to decide, well, I guess he doesn't have to decide, because Kenneth was already in prison by the time he became a district attorney. So, because I was kind of thinking of it on the angle of, well, wait a minute, the guy whose brother you killed has to decide how and when you get out, but no, that wasn't the case. I don't think the district attorney has anything to do with it once you get prosecuted. I think everything that has to do with you getting out of jail after that is a totally separate system. I don't know for sure. Maybe one of you or even Guy could answer that question for me. But, yeah, I was kind of looking at that angle, and it was weird. But I get it now that wasn't what was going on. So, I do feel bad for the grandfather. He wants to see his grandson get out of jail before he passes away. And the dude is literally 90 years old. And this is from season 1, which was 4 years ago, at least 5 years ago. So, he'd be 95 now. But yeah, guys, so tell me what you think. Are you as morally conflicted on the finer details as I am? I'm looking forward to the third episode we can talk about. I can't wait to get here and discuss that as well. So, have a good day. Hit up the Patreon, and lock your doors up.